going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep 'em flowing. Where do you come from? Where are you going? What are you feeling tonight? And what are you showing? Where do you come from? 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 Where are you going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep 'em flowing.
Oh, I love that tune. Oh, but I gotta add a fader.
It was a bit abrupt.
Hey! Welcome. We are here on our first ever episode of Super PlayStation Brothers. Featuring...
I've got nothing PlayStation around me. I do apologize. This feels terrible.
Oh, I do. Look at this Pro Control DualSense back pedals.
You see, now you're just showing off.
Yeah,
Some of us aren't that rich, baby. Some of us aren't that rich.
It's the best piece of tech. Oh my gosh, the immersion in it is so good. We are here. This is our inaugural episode. What's up? Thank you everyone for showing up. These are the hosts of the show, Rudigs and Dorgon. We're here to talk everything PlayStation, as we are PlayStation enthusiasts, and yeah. This is what it's about. Some Super PlayStation Brothers, getting it into it. Actually, I meant to ask you before the show, have you played Mario before? Because that's how the title is. It's like a play on PlayStation and Mario.
I'm 35 years old, mate. If I haven't played Mario by this point, I would be very shocked and worried about my existence.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, Nads, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Yes, we're hosting on Cloud&Console because this channel is about cloud as well as console, and this is the console side of it. What's going on, Cowboy King of Entertainment, Reaver the Beaver, Ray the Gaming Cyborg, Hannah? Oh, love you. Thank you for stopping on by. That's my wife there.
Hi, wifey.
Wow, so many people. Vet Gaming, what's going on as well? So many people coming out. Thank you. Whoa. Without further ado, let's get into these show notes, but I want to start off with something that's not on the show notes here. What have you been playing on your PlayStation this week? What's been going on that front? What's in the gaming world for you?
There's been the staple. There's been Destiny on rotation. I've been mopping up quite a bit in the Burning Shores DLC for Horizon Forbidden West and capturing some new footage for that because I'm planning on putting a DLC review out shortly, so fingers crossed that one is all looking swank and smooth in that beautiful 60 frames per second. But it's been a bit of a quiet week. I've actually been jailbreaking my PlayStation Vita so that I can play all sorts of games on that. So I didn't want to purchase one of these cool little handheld retro devices when I had one of the best ones on the market in my house already. So I've looked at jailbreaking that, getting all the emulators on it, how to dump all of my ROMs from the Vita cards, from SNES cards, and all that sort of stuff. It's been a journey of discovery this past week, but I do have Mario 64 running upon my PlayStation Vita, which is just a weird world.
Yes. I saw that tweet now that you say you had Mario 64, and I'm like, what? Did you Photoshop that? What's happening here? Now here's the explanation. You emulated it.
Yeah, so I've been turning that into like my ultimate portable gaming machine, and it's working quite nicely. I'm trying to get PlayStation 5 Remote Play working on it because it's not something that they've done officially, but there are apps out there that will allow you to do PlayStation 5 Remote Play on your Vita. It's not working just yet because it's in a very early beta phase, but I am trying to get that sorted. I've got it working on my phone through the same application, so I know it works well, and the latency is actually better than the official application, so fingers crossed. when it comes to Vita, it becomes a portable PlayStation 5 for everybody, just with built-in controls.
Wow. That's pretty sweet. And I'm sure that saves you a pretty penny, too.
Well, I've kind of bought it all in the past anyway. I'm doing this totally above board, totally legally. There's no stealing or piracy or anything here. I don't have an eye patch ready to go. But yeah,
pirating. But yeah, you get a second life in my perspective.
That's the big one. Yeah. So I'm not having to buy another console because there's loads of these like little cool retro handheld consoles. Some of them, they're Game Boy shaped. You can stick your Game Boy cartridges in, or your Game Boy Advance and such as well.
Yeah.
But they're quite expensive. They're 60 to 80 pounds each, maybe even more for some of them. The ones that do more like old school devices and such. When my Vita can do all that, and I've already got all of this like data files and such, like, why not give it a try? Let's see what happens.
And we will. I mean, we've seen the results. You're running Super Mario, and we'll see what else that device is able to handle. What's up, Callie Drew Voss? Thanks for stopping on in. Hope you're doing well, mate. Hope your wheel of games lands on something entertaining today. Did you just say you were emulating games, but you're not stealing? I'm confused, says Cowboy. Yeah. What's the justification in your mind there that you're not stealing, you're emulating, I guess? Because in my mind, if you're emulating, you haven't bought the first party console.
So every game that I am emulating,
license.
Every game I'm emulating, I own. I have dumped the information from the cartridge, the CD, the little tiny Vita carts. I have dumped those onto another device, so whether it's onto my tablet and then transferred it from my tablet to the Vita, or whether it's because the Vita can take the game information from the cart itself and dump it straight onto the Vita once it's jailbroken. So all of these games I own, they are in my house. They are fully purchased. They have been played on the original consoles as well. But by sticking them on this little handheld, I can take them anywhere with me. And because it's such a little screen, they don't need any upscaling. So it doesn't take the same sort of power as emulating on my phone does, which I always want to make them look better because it's a higher resolution screen. And, like 360p on a 1440p screen, it doesn't look great, does it? So
yeah,
the justification is it allows me to take all of the games that I own that I want to take anywhere with me. Like I'm planning on going on holiday in a couple of weeks' time abroad somewhere. So I could just put all of those onto that device and play them through the emulation. I know people like Nintendo aren't happy with the emulators, but people like Sony, Xbox, and a bunch of PC guys, they're absolutely fine with it because for the most part, people have bought these games and they're just keeping them alive on different hardware moving forward.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you redesign or repurpose a piece of clothing into another outfit, it's not like you're stealing the outfit, you're just repurposing it. Something you already own. But yeah, Cowboy may say it sounds like stealing, but we'll agree to disagree here. Maybe the rules are different in the US. This is coming from a
guy who calls himself Cowboy.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not what they were known for?
All right, let's jump into. Well, actually, wait. I've been
what have you been playing?
PlayStation myself here with my back paddles. I've been getting into Jedi Survivor. At the top of this week, it's been consuming my playtime. I know a lot of people have been down on the frame rate, the glitches, the overall aesthetic look of it. And yeah, to me, it kind of looks like somebody didn't color in the lines. It looks like there's like this fuzzy blurriness to the faces. When you first run into the guy who's made out of worms, Ryviv, I can't remember his name. But he doesn't look well at all. He looks like he's up from the GameCube era, like something out of Metroid Prime.
Right.
So I'm very disappointed on the graphical fidelity. I find the sword play is no Sekiro. It's no Dark Souls. The wielding a lightsaber feels much different to me than it did previously. So it's like that finite of holding up that block. You have to be sure it's the right time. You can't repetitively press it. Every button swing is an actual swing, so there's no canceling of a swing. So I'm getting used to that different play style. But otherwise, I'm enjoying the story. I love the Calcastus saga, talking into the Golden Age and the Jedis of past when the Jedis ruled the world. There's a lot of interesting and unique stuff happening that I feel like I'm inside a Star Wars movie. So there are aspects that are really pulling me in. Plus, I got a man bun and a long beard. That's pretty cool.
That suits you to a T, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
I have to ask: have you turned things like chromatic aberration and motion blur off in the settings to try and improve the graphics?
Yeah, so I took off performance mode because it wasn't working well for me. I didn't see any difference. It wasn't like Horizon Forbidden West where you turn on performance mode and something clicks. It looks visually stunning.
Yeah.
So it didn't have that effect for me. So the textures look a bit nicer on graphical mode. But yeah, you got to turn off the blur. You got to turn off the motion. And hopefully it'll make it look a bit nicer. But to me, it still looks like they didn't draw in the lines. But I don't know I hope it's getting updated and patched in the near future. But there's only so much patchwork that can be done at this point. I just want to get through it to hear out the story and see where Cal is on the next adventure.
It's a shame you've had those down points with it, because from what everybody's saying, it's a great game underneath the issues. It just feels like it was launched maybe 3 or 6 months too early, because it hasn't got that level of polish that we're used to from Respawn, especially when these are the guys who gave us Titanfall 2, for example.
Yeah. I never got to play Titanfall 2. I'm a bit of a new at gaming in the new gaming verse. But, things I'm really enjoying are what they've added to Cal, the new jumping, the explorability. Having BD is always a delight, and having him interact with you in these situations. Characters feel a little bit stiff in terms of you interact them and you know exactly what they're gonna say, or how you know exactly where the story's gonna go. But yeah, it's Star Wars. You get into it because you love the series.
Exactly. And it's probably why I've not got into either of them, because I'm not a huge Star Wars fan.
Uh-oh. So, yes. Other than that, I've been playing another game on a different system that we'll talk another podcast about. But yes, let's get into the news. My first story here is about Gorilla and their celebration. Obviously, they've hit a massive milestone here, and they're talking about 20 years of Gorilla, the story of this PlayStation studio coming from Killzone, taking their first leaps into Zero Dawn. And, being there at E3 2015 before the presentation, wondering, are people going to enjoy shooting dinosaurs with bows? Did we do something horribly wrong here? And then it just hitting off like a massive success.
It's one of those. You put dinosaurs in there, you put robots in there, you make the dinosaurs actual robots, so that's two things in one. Bows and arrows are always good in games, and you throw in an amazing story like in Zero Dawn. I'm surprised they were ever dubious about this. That does actually surprise me reading through this blog post. You've got a winning formula. Robot dinos and shooting them in the face. What can go wrong? People have been asking for a Turok or Jurassic Park game akin to what we got on the PlayStation 1 and Sega way back in the day. And this is the closest we've come. It's great. You had a winning formula, Gorilla. Stand by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done great over the years.
Fully enjoyed it.
I've taken them everywhere. I've had the PSP and PS Vita as well, so I've had Killzone games on both of those. The PlayStation 4 launched with Killzone. It was then sort of almost swan-songed with Zero Dawn. And they've just been fantastic at everything they do, even at giving me motion sickness in the Horizon Call of the Mountain VR game.
Yeah.
That they know how to make you feel ill just by looking down. It's terrifying.
What's up, FCAT? No, this is not a Stadia podcast. If you were not aware, Stadia did leave us January earlier this year. No, This is a podcast about PlayStation. Yes, you're here with Super PlayStation Brothers, the gaming PlayStation podcast, the best place to get your PlayStation news. Yes, so 20th year anniversary from Killzone to Horizon Forbidden West. The playability, the immense worlds. I mean, my experience is only on the Horizon side. I was never a player of Killzone. I never got into those sort of shooter games back in the day. But when I turned on Zero Dawn, I don't think I turned on anything else for months. I was just immersed in that world, in that PlayStation.
It was the
There's
discovery of
nothing
the
bad
story.
to say about it.
Yeah, the story in Zero Dawn did more than anything else for me. That's why I was so engrossed with it. I wanted to get to it. Wibblesniff had played it before me. He wanted to see my reaction to certain points in the story, so I was going to work the next day. We were sitting down on our lunch breaks and just talking Zero Dawn. It was all-encompassing. And I enjoyed the Killzone games. They were very good. They weren't quite the level of, say, the Bungie shooters at the time, but they were absolutely fantastic for PlayStation franchises. They stood up alongside the Resistance games from Insomniac incredibly well. They had brilliant multiplayer, brilliant single-player stories, which was something that was seemingly dying out in first-person shooters in the early 2010s. So the fact that Guerrilla were pushing the amazing gameplay and story with a first-person shooter. They've just been a fantastic studio for the last 20 years. Absolutely fantastic. And I don't particularly have anything bad to say about them other than Forbidden West should have been delayed by about 6 months, because I had it pop in where I had a floating building and I fell through the bottom of the floor. You know, these things happen, but like, a little bit more polish and they'd have had a flawless record up until this point.
It's now sort of ruined a little bit of games for me, because I'll be walking through a certain game in the grass and I'll be like, where is my Horizon Forbidden West fidelity? It's so nice. It's so beautiful. It's like you reach out into your screen and touch the grass. It's so real. But yeah, congratulations. 32.7 million. That's a very successful business venture in my mind.
It's a massive change of tack for the studio, huge challenge, and as they've said, trepidation. But to sell 32 million copies, it's off the franchise. Don't get me wrong. So it's 2 games, but still massive, absolutely massive.
SPG, thanks for coming on in. Can't wait to get my PS5 so I can game 4K 12 or 8K 30. Well,
I think he's trying to say 120.
120, yeah. Hey man, that's coming. That's coming. I mean, I'm thinking later on in the years, the next generation of games, they'll just come out, boom, hit the ground running. You'll get 8K 240 FPS. Boom. No, I'm joking. We'll see.
Maybe
what
not on console.
No one can see the future. Hey, you gotta have the screen. I don't know anyone who has an 8K screen.
I don't have an 8K screen. I have a 4K screen, and yes, no, it wasn't the reading SPG. It was the writing that was the issue there, my friend.
Yeah, the writing, yeah. that is curious. You know, they do put 8K on the box. I mean, there has to be someone in a boardroom who said, "Yeah, let's go with 8K." There has to be some sort of thinking where that is a possible output in my mind. I mean, they couldn't have just said, we're going to have 8K and then never produce something that's 8K.
The
perhaps
8K
like
is
FCAD said with the assistance of the cloud.
Yeah, the 8K is there. It is available, and in early previews, they were showing it off running in 8K. But it was 8K something like 24, like the cinematic frame rate, which was just very weird to watch. But it's not there in the retail options, so it's got to be a firmware update. But I understand them not putting that out there when like 3 people maybe have an 8K screen because they cost $20,000 or something ridiculous like that. So it's there, it's possible. It's a bit pointless at this point in time.
Yeah.
The horsepower should be used for other things, for better frame rates, for better graphics, better particle effects, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we got the consoles, I feel, right before there was this big push for AI powered graphics cards. In my humble opinion, I'm an enthusiast. I don't know all too much, but I feel like the next generation of consoles will definitely have this AI power pushing them. Hopefully, we'll be able to work with the cloud, like FCAT is saying, and sort of come out with something that does perhaps boost us while we're playing and give us that higher fidelity. I'm waiting for those kinds of experiences, and I hope they come. We do have a question from Cowboy here. He is asking for reasons. He wants to keep the premium. Oh, no, sorry. I'm reading this wrong. I'm deciding to downgrade PlayStation Plus Premium to PlayStation Plus Essential. Can you guys give me reasons why I should keep my premium? So Essentials, so we're being clear, is just the 4 games and that you get on the month, and it's the online access.
Cloud
And then
storage
with
as well
cloud,
is
so
included
you
in
get
Essential.
cloud
Yeah.
storage with Essential. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
you get
cool.
cloud storage for your save games, so you can back up your entire console to the cloud, which is
Right.
nice.
So yeah, no, that's good that they give that as a standard program. And then we have basically the reason to get the additional stuff, which would be the game catalog. This is the additional things you get cloud gaming, and then you get access to games they give every half month. Halfway through the month, they'll drop a good portion of games, and then you get access to what PlayStation has their equivalent to Game Pass. And Cowboy, it's like it all depends on your gameplay style. I mean, if you have a certain game like Avengers, you just want to sit game on, play. I mean, why get anything other than that? But if you're interested in experiencing the catalog, going back through the classics, experiencing those day ones, because what PlayStation is starting to do now with their game catalog is release a day one uh, every month. So this has been a new trend they've been doing. They did it with Tachai, they did it with now Humanity, and there was another game last month they also did a day one. Meet Your Maker.
Yes. Yeah.
So there
And that went
is
straight onto
value.
Essential. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that went on to Essential as well.
That went on to Essential, yeah. So they've been
Oh, okay.
changing the way that they do things quite a bit. More of the AA indie type releases are going day and date. In terms of why you should keep premium, you probably shouldn't. If you are not using those services, it's a monetary outlay that could be used for something else. Another game that you want to play that's not on any of these services, a meal out with friends and family, something like that. Premium is there for the cloud gamers, so to save a bit of hardware space, hard drive space, that sort of thing. It's there for the classics catalog, so those who've come in at the PlayStation 5 generation, for example, and haven't experienced things like Uncharted on the PlayStation 3, like the infamous and Resistance games from Sucker Punch and Insomniac. That is what PlayStation Plus Premium offers you. It offers you access to that classics catalog that can't be played natively on this hardware. Whereas if that doesn't bother you, if you're only bothered by the PlayStation 4 and 5 games, the most sort of up-to-date, biggest fidelity and that sort of thing, then by all means, just drop down to extra, save yourself some cash, and basically have the same experience. I wouldn't personally do it because I go back and revisit a lot of those PlayStation 3 games, and I revisit a lot of them with my partner. We do split-screen co-op over the cloud. So it's a big part of our gaming habit, but I understand for a lot of people, it's not going to have any sort of impact on their day-to-day gaming. So there's no reason keeping it if you can't see one for you personally. By all means, drop down to extra. Sony aren't going to be bothered by that. You're still paying the money, mate.
Yeah, and the extra and premium difference is just that cloud gaming aspect from what I'm familiar with. And
yeah, 100%.
if I'm being correct here in saying Cowboy uses GameFly, in my opinion, you're already getting a catalog of games that you're selecting from. So why take the chance at getting a handful of games that PlayStation picks when you're sort of taking control in your own hands and picking your own games that you want? So in that case, I would probably just say stick with your basic. get your online access and pick up the games you want to play. If you're interested in having the catalog in front of you, pump it up to extra, because I don't think I see you running the cloud very often. Typically, you just download 7 games because you have the MV drive, and then you just play them throughout and delete the ones you don't want. So in that case, why even get premium? For me, I love the premium. I got a super cheap price on Black Friday. It was like $100 for the entire year. So I'm not batting an eye. I get awesome games. I like to browse through them, and I'll play Ratchet and Clank. I'll give Humanity a try, and we'll see if anything sticks there. I've been interested in trying the new Ratchet and Clank for a while. I haven't jumped into the series, and it is a big PlayStation one.
It's a fantastic game. I bought it on release. I played through it. I reviewed it, and I loved every second of it. Ratchet and Clank is a great series. I've played it across multiple different generations, multiple different hardware. I've even played it on the PSP because they did a Ratchet standalone game on the PSP. It's brilliant, but the biggest thing about Rift Apart for me was how well it showed off the PlayStation hardware. We've not really had that many games that have come out and shown what these brand new consoles can do, what this current generation of consoles can do. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is one of those. You hop dimensions, you hop from one giant map into another giant map instantly. There's no load time, there's no screen tearing, there's no break. It is an instant translation from one to the other, and you just continue gameplay. That alone blew me away. But then, of course, you've got the haptics, and the way the haptics work in this game is they create sound effects through the controller as well. So try and play it on your stereo speakers, not on your headphones when you come to it, because there's movements that are made better by hearing what the haptics are doing through the controller as well. It even heightens the immersion even further. I loved the game. I platinumed the game. I earned a platinum trophy in that really quickly, really happily. I think it's fantastic and a brilliant example of what the PlayStation 5 is capable of.
Yeah, and I look forward to jumping into that. The haptic experience that you get with PlayStation really sets apart an immersion level from the Xbox, because the Xbox doesn't deliver that haptic feedback, in my experience. It's just your standard rumble. People think, how is it really that much of a game changer? In your hands, it's that much of a game changer. No wonder your controller dies so fast. It is so busy keeping you immersed. It's putting in work. The raindrops in Last of Us, when they started falling, I'm like, what has happened? You can feel it in your hands. It's so good. I love it, and I wouldn't trade that immersion for a power down any day. Cool stuff. We have Thymesia. Have you played Thymesia? Oh my god.
I haven't. I was really glad when this came into the list of the PS Plus extra games. I've heard many good things from many different people about Thymesia, so I'm very much looking forward to picking that up. And is that PS3 or 5? I can't quite read that there.
Oh, it's PS5.
PS5. Excellent, yeah. So yeah, I'll be picking that up and having a play through that
a new one. Yeah. FCAT has the same question. When will PlayStation drop the PS Plus requirement for Destiny 2? This is not. I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably never. Yeah. It's not the way Sony and PlayStation operate, and I realize it's been dropped across all other platforms that Destiny 2 is on, but I don't foresee PlayStation ever dropping that requirement.
They just want you to pay a subscription to be a part of their ecosystem, and they don't see an issue with that. Well, we have Lake, if you remember, it was a Stadia one. Conan Exiles, Rune Factory. I'm not too sure on all of these games. Yeah, but some sound titles filling out the classics catalog.
Oh, Siphon Filter. Just give me all the Siphon
Filter. I always see that.
Stealth into my veins. I love stealth gameplay.
To play it.
Oh, the fact that they've got trophy support as well. It's like I sometimes struggle to go back to some classic games. Like, I know I love them, and I know they are quintessential to my gaming experience, and I want to go back and show people what I've had these experiences with. But the fact that they threw trophy support into all of the Siphon Filter games on PS Plus Premium, for me, it's like an addiction. I have to then go and try and earn them. It's brilliant. Like, great quality of life change.
Well, I'll have to check. Man, there's so many titles I've been missing out on this PlayStation world. As Cowboy was saying here, it's described the new Ratchet and Clank like a Marvel movie. My memories of Ratchet and Clank were from my childhood playing it. It was, that platformer, and you had these crazy guns. I remember you had like a chicken gun or something like that. There was a lot of entertaining, fun, and good gameplay. The bosses were always like very large. I like bosses that take up your screen and feel very epic. Did it have difficulty settings?
They do have difficulty settings now. Yeah. I think they did back in the day. I can't quite remember. I think the original on the PS2, it was a solid difficulty, which was solid. So I've had to crank them all up to extra hard when I've played them to get the enjoyment out of them that I like. But if you just want to go through it and enjoy it for the story, because they are good stories, then yeah, jump in and play on easy. It'd be amazing.
I like the hard difficulties, but we'll see how we go.
I cowarded out of God of War Ragnarok's hard mode.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. I forgot about that. I did that really quickly. I was like, oh my gosh, this game is slapping me hard.
I mean, it is described as wrestling a bear with an arm tied behind your back, and I absolutely loved that in the 2018 version. So when Ragnarok came around, it's like, I'm doing my first one on the hard mode, and then I'll go give me God of War. It still kicked my ass, and I loved it.
Damn, see, I'll beat Sekiro all day, but that game on anything over medium is so difficult, so punishing. They crank, like, I don't even know what Give Me No Mercy is. It must be punishing, beyond punishing.
It was, the final bosses in that one were incredibly difficult, because, trying not to spoil anything for anybody here, but you've got, like, world bosses that you go around and fight, and then you've got like a final world boss that takes all of the skills from them and melds it into one boss in a massive sort of 12 segment health bar, and you've got to try and take him out before you then go and try and take out this game's Valkyrie Queen. So exactly the same as in the last game, there was a Valkyrie Queen, only she's got even more new powers that Odin has bestowed upon her. So like those final two bosses must have taken me about 3 or 4 weeks to get through. But I kept going back for that challenge. Like, I kept getting beaten down, destroyed, wiped out in like 12 seconds flat, and I kept going back for like what. However they made the gameplay in that game, it was an addiction. You wanted more of it all the time, and it just kept me coming back for the punishment. And eventually, I got through it and got that platinum trophy.
Yeah, I remember you posting that. For me, I always have to feel like I ammed the character in the game. So God of War was one of those games where I never saw myself as a bald white guy. So it was just hard for me to put myself in his position. I liked Atreus. He was cool. But it was just that good of a gameplay mechanic-wise that it pulled me through the story. See, Link, I'm Link all day. That long curly hair, that's me. Aloy, sure, I'll be Aloy. Like, I understand that. There's just...
I think you can pull off an immersion hot level, chick saving the world, yeah.
There's an immersion level that sort of pulls out for me in God of War. Maybe that's because I don't have my own kid, but it seems like a lot of God of parenting, you're raising Atreus, like there's that relationship there. Fenrir was a big heartstring puller for me because I have a dog personally, so... But yeah, I mean, brilliant game, excellent cinematics, and you won't be happy to know this, but after Odin, I was like, okay, I guess I beat the game, and then I switched to the next game.
The two best challenges in the game you've missed! You have to go back!
I know, I have to play that.
You hurt me so, sir.
It'll happen. I beat Horizon Forbidden West and the DLC. I mean, how awesome was that boss at the end? Oh, and the
The
new gun you get.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
feels so
DLC
good.
for Forbidden West, I personally think was better than the base game. I think it was better than Forbidden West itself because it was focused. It was just focused on this story, this discovery, this end point that sets up the finale to the trilogy, which will probably be 5 or 6 years away by now. But I love that focus, and I love the fact that there was a single companion character, not like 8. Then you just built that relationship between them because everything was that much smaller, that much more focused. It hit home a lot better for me and felt more
Yes.
like Zero Dawn did, and I really, really appreciated that.
Yeah, less was better. Less was better. And I wish almost like Horizon Forbidden West was just a bunch of like small things and then you moved on to the next island. I don't know, but if it just had a bunch of like encounters like that where you
Yeah,
come in contact with a new person, follow them along, those boat scenes, like I feel like they took what worked with God of War Ragnarok and really wove it into the DLC for
it's
Forbidden West.
it's what I like about the PlayStation Studios. It doesn't matter which one you look at, whether it's the likes of Haven, Bungie, Insomniac, Santa Monica, Naughty Dog. They all take aspects from one another and use it elsewhere. So, for example, the horse in The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima is the same horse actor, the same horse motion capture. They went into this studio together because both games were being built around the same time using horseback riding, using horse animations. They recorded it and took those horses in opposite directions and came out with 2 very different builds of a horse in a game, but it's the same horse. It's the same horsey actor. And like you say, the boat thing
Okay.
has gone
So
from
this is the official PlayStation pony.
it's the official PlayStation pony. Heck yeah. But yeah, that's the sort of thing that they do constantly across the PlayStation studios. They share technology, they share assets, they help each other out when needs as well. Like if you look at the credits on The Last of Us Part 2, there are so many PlayStation studios involved in that game, whether it's in a massive or tiny aspect. Like Sucker Punch was credited for a lot of the motion capture for The Last of Us Part 2, and that's a Naughty Dog game, like the absolute pinnacle of what PlayStation says they can offer. It's really good to see them share those sort of things and see like the boats coming into Horizon, seeing the bow and arrow play crossing like 4 or 5 different games, and then there's just Insomniac holding up the entire gaming industry.
What? Insomniac's? Okay, first of all, I will say, again, this is how Horizon Forbidden West ruined me. Every time I'm pulling a bow in another certain game, I'm like, where's my concentration? Why isn't it freezing time? Why am I not, like...
Because the
bow
ghost
play
does not freeze
feels
time.
It feels so good. It feels so good.
It
I want
does.
all...
But the
time.
ghost needs no time freeze. The ghost is just
Yes.
the ghost.
Come on, Ghost.
Yeah,
Come on, Ghost.
You can't have freezing time arrows in every single game. What I need to do is throw you in Assassin's Creed Origins, and then you get an arrow that you can control in the air, and that'll ruin everything else for you.
Oh my gosh. That's
How that works?
VR. Now you're the arrow.
now you are the arrow.
Oh, you're getting motion sickness.
Oh god, I'll just be dead on the floor, mate. Just like, oh, kill me now. But yeah, they all share, and it's great. It's great to see bits appear elsewhere. But yeah, that whole quote of Insomniac holding up the gaming industry, Marvel Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart within 3 years, and then we've got Spider-Man 2 this year and Marvel's Wolverine coming up within the next 2 years. They've released more than literally the entirety of the rest of Sony and Xbox combined on their own. They are holding up the industry.
Wow, I did not. But there's a lot coming from PlayStation, right? I mean, maybe this image isn't the easiest to see here, but we have Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Haven Studios, Savage, Firewalk, which is now a new addition, right? We have Blue Point. Like, all of these studios are creating some pretty big games, all for PlayStation. I mean, they have a pretty immerse
Yeah,
set of
and
people
Media
here.
Molecule, they've just announced that they're moving on from Dreams, so they're moving on to whatever their next project is. It's supposed to be a brand new IP. Housemarque are apparently 2 years into the development of their next title.
Right. I
Asobi,
mean, Returnal was
yeah,
just, oh my gosh, the chef's kiss.
I am
Hands
hoping
down,
Asobi
so
are
good.
hard at work bringing Astrobots VR from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 for VR2. So I'm really hoping to get that one. Naughty Dog are doing something. Nobody quite knows what. We know we've got factions coming later this year. The Last of Us
Well, we got
multiplayer mode.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. We have
But
that, and
outside
then
of that,
from what I was reading, there was talks of some sort of fantasy open world game that Naughty Dog was talking about working on, just following their passion. I read an interview with some of the devs there, so we could see something of that nature.
I mean, there's
I'd
two
be
teams at
very
Naughty
interested.
Dog.
Yeah,
So it used to be that one team was the Uncharted team, one team was the Last of Us team, and they ran side by side for Uncharted 3, The Last of Us Part 1, Uncharted 4, Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted Lost Legacy, and then the re-release Part 1. But obviously, we've not had an Uncharted game since 2017 now, so whether they've been working on factions and who did Part 2 is maybe moving on to Part 3 or wants to do something completely different, like, I'm excited for whatever Naughty Dog bring us, especially if it's a new IP, because when it's a new IP, Naughty Dog truly deliver. Like, that they really blow you away.
I look forward to it. You only recognize 4 of the studios. Come on, you heard
Which
of
4, Eva? Come on.
Yeah. Well, Insomniac, you must have heard of Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, and Gorilla. I mean, there's also Sucker Punch, which is a huge one.
There goes to Tsushima and Infamous. Yep.
But yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, I guess not a lot of these have like huge names. Haven would be one you would have to know from the Stadia days. Their game, we're hoping to see something, maybe 2026. Who knows really there. And yeah, Bend Studios. I've not heard of this, but a AAA new IP, including multiplayer to come.
Yeah, so Bend, they're the guys behind Days Gone previously. They did did the PlayStation Portable God of Wars previously. So they've got some great caliber in that team, especially now that the rather toxic studio head has gone and they've got somebody new in place. So fingers crossed, like, they're going to bring us something spectacular as well. Santa Monica, Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Media Molecule. You surprised me, Reaver. I would have thought you'd have heard of a few more of them. Maybe Bungie, who made Halo, for example.
Bungie would be another one. Yeah, Bungie's on this
list. Just saying. But yeah, they've got partners as well. That's the big thing. They've got partners like Square Enix. So Final Fantasy 16 is a PlayStation console exclusive. I don't think that would ever run on Switch anyway, so I don't think Nintendo can gripe about missing out on that one. But I can understand Xbox having issues with it. But yeah,
it's looking good. I mean, okay, here's another thing. I'm glad I didn't tell you until after you agreed to play the podcast or do the podcast with me. But I have never played a Final Fantasy before. So this will be my first one.
Do you want to know something probably worse than that?
Uh-oh.
It is probably Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1 the last time I played a Final Fantasy game.
But you played the classic. That's
I played
what I always hear
classic,
is that's the one to play.
I had to stop because my brother, who is about 3 years younger than me, and when Final Fantasy VII came out, I think I was about 7, maybe 8, something like that. I can't quite remember. It might have been a little bit older. I'm not 100%. But my little brother lost disc 3. So I got 2 discs in, and then disc 3 was just gone. And I'm like, No, I can't. So yeah, I did play Final Fantasy VII, but only the first 2 discs because disc 3 went missing, and my parents could not afford to rebuy it.
Who's making these games that are 3 discs long? Like, oh my goodness.
Every single amazing game on the original PlayStation came on multiple discs. Metal Gear Solid was on 2 discs, and they took the mick out of themselves in Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PlayStation 3. Like, you get a call from Otacon halfway through the game, and he's like, Snake, it's time to change the disc. Oh, no, we don't have to change the disc. We're on the PlayStation 3 system now. Hey, you can just continue playing with this 50 gigabyte of data.
There's a little shout out like that?
There's a legit shout out in Metal Gear Solid 4.
4.
Brilliant.
I played 3, which was Snake Eater.
3 was Snake Eater. The current rumor is Snake Eater is the one getting a remake and being announced at the PlayStation, whatever they're doing, probably June sometime. If that is the case, I would love to see PlayStation buy the IP. I doubt Konami will sell Konami as a whole to PlayStation, so they're not going to get things like Pro Evo Soccer and stuff like that. But they do stand a chance of maybe buying certain IPs, and if they can get hold of Metal Gear Solid, especially with the relationship PlayStation have with Hideo Kojima,
right,
there will be a lot of very excited fans. Very excited fans.
Yeah, I mean, give me some new Metal Gear. I mean, we gotta have a Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 5 era, so I mean, we're probably gonna get a new one, a remake.
A remake in the Fox engine. So the same engine that they built Metal Gear Solid 5 in, that engine was phenomenal, way ahead of its time. And unfortunately, Kojima couldn't bring that engine with him when he left Konami. They kept the engine. So he built Death Stranding in the Guerrilla engine in Decima. So if they can get hold of the Fox engine or just make these remakes in the Fox engine, be amazing. It'll be absolutely amazing.
Callie makes a good point. Maybe we'll see a Metal Gear Solid in VR.
No, what he's saying is the original PlayStation, because he's saying he still owns his original PlayStation and Metal Gear Solid, but there was an additional release called VR Missions. So it's like a 4-disc box. I've got it downstairs. It's a 4-disc box.
Oh, it includes
that gives you
Metal
the main
Gear Solid
game
VR. Wow.
And Metal Gear Solid VR Missions. So it's like Snake's in the VR. He's wearing the VR headset. These are training missions for him to get better. So for you to get better at the game. They're brilliant, and I've just pulled them out of storage so I can get them onto my Vita.
That's pretty neat. That's a neat little... I thought he was like VR Metal Gear Solid. That would be cool.
I would love that. Do not get me wrong. VR MGS, bring it. But I don't know how you're going to keep that. You'd have to go first person, and that pulls away from what Metal Gear Solid is for me. It's very story based, a lot of it, especially the exposition and what have you. But yeah, it's I still have my original copy as well, and then my brother's got his original and his replacement copy because a picture fell off the wall, destroyed my Hybrid Theory and his Metal Gear Solid. So my Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park is gone because we've got better quality audio now, but he has still got his broken version of Metal Gear Solid and his replacement one. Plus, he's got the Twin Snakes remake version on the GameCube. He's a bit of a fan.
Well, here's what I like to see coming out of games. And this is what I consider games that fit our day and age. So Final Fantasy 15 for PlayStation 5, they came out and said 4K 30 FPS. We're also having a 60 FPS mode, haptic feedback, adaptive trigger, fast loading 3D audio. But boom, there you go. How hard is it to do? Give us 60 FPS and 4K at 30. They don't say if the 60 FPS is going to be 1080p or 2K, but it's
my
it's
expectation
what
based
people
on
expect.
Yeah, my expectation based on other PlayStation games is it will run at 1800p, so just below that 4K mark at 60 frames per second, because that's what God of War does. It's what The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 do. It's what Ghost of Tsushima does, and a bunch of the other first-party games, they run at 1800p at the 60 frames per second. So That's my expectation.
Was that like 2.5K or something?
Something along those, maybe 3K. I
Yeah.
don't rightly know how these Ks work. But
but it's going to feel nice, and you know they're going to deliver, because that's the kind of thing you would expect out of a game coming out in 2023, is just that 60 FPS as a standard you'll be able to flip on. And I'm just happy to see it.
If they came out at 30 and just said, this is how we want the game to be, we want it running at 4K all the time at 30 frames per second, and that's a conscious design choice by them, I can accept that. That is actually fine by me. It's when you get studios coming out like Gotham Knights running on the PlayStation 5, it doesn't quite reach 4K and it doesn't quite reach 30 frames per second. There's no reason for that on the technology that is available to them in this hardware, in any of the hardware, because it was bad even on PC. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but if they go for it from a design perspective, that is specifically what they want, I'm okay with it.
I agree with that. If they're going for that art house look, maybe they don't want that for certain aesthetic reasons, for sure. But I just think this is the sort of standard us as gamers have come to expect, and it's just nice to be reaffirmed by big studios and big games coming out and saying, "Yep, we're doing 60 FPS. This is how it's going to be now."
Yeah,
and
100%.
I'm glad to hear that. They also go on to say, if we didn't, so this is a direct quote from the designer over here at Final Fantasy 15. If we didn't have the memory that PlayStation 5 has, and also the transfer speed from the solid state drive that the PlayStation 5 has, we would be still in development now. So that's really what changes the PlayStation 5, from what I've heard, is this solid state drive. And the speeds are being able to do these crazy load times like you see with Rift Apart. So everything's sort of coming together, and we're seeing this next gen or whatever technology they decide to put in this PlayStation really being optimized and used to bring us, better quality games. Or it's just a quote to make me say that, but yeah.
It might be a quote to make you say that. It might be a bit of marketing mumbo jumbo. Let's not forget some recent releases across every platform where they've given us marketing mumbo jumbo and then it's all fallen down upon release. But Square Enix with Final Fantasy have rarely, if ever, missed. They may have missed with Final Fantasy 13, but they corrected that through patches, and then 13.2 and 13.3 were incredibly well received. They are now like fan favorites. 14, it's very different because it's an MMO, but people love it, put so much time into it, and they rarely miss. Because every Final Fantasy can be completely different to the last Final Fantasy, they can do whatever they want, and because they are so well in tune with what they want and how they can hone that, like Square Enix rarely miss, and I am expecting an amazing game. It might not be for me because very few of the others have been, but I'm very much looking forward to it for all of the Final Fantasy fans.
Yeah, it looks to be, to me, when I saw the playthroughs, I'm like, did they mix Elden Ring with Devil May Cry and just make it look freaking cool? Because that was my takeaway from watching some trailers. It just
where do you think those
phenomenal.
Franchises got it from?
Yeah. Exactly. It's all reciprocal. It's all coming back from each other. But yeah, absolutely. The game looks phenomenal. It's going to be one of the biggest drops from the studio. And their Final Fantasy 14, I still couldn't believe it. I was reading they just dropped DLC, and the game came out in 2010. It's a 13-year-old
game.
MMOs
for you. Yeah, that is how MMOs work. They're still dropping content for World of Warcraft. They had a new expansion in December, maybe November, some point. But late last year, they had a new expansion for World of Warcraft. That's a 23-year-old game.
Jeez. 23 years old. Wow. Yeah.
If you do it right, if you have the fan base, if you treat your fans well, like with Final Fantasy 14, you've got like 60 levels and all of the content up to Heaven's Sword free. You don't have to pay until you're completely invested, and by which point you're willing to pay anyway. It's a brilliant marketing model now.
All right, well, I thought I would wrap up the show with our last question here. So this has been a bit of a debate in the PlayStation world as I see it. And I'm hearing there's rumors of this PlayStation showcase that's going to happen May 25th. And all I've seen is content user rumors behind this. Now, what I've actually seen from PlayStation is them saying that they will be participating in Summer Games Fest in early June. And my question to Dorgon here is, do you think we're going to get this special PlayStation showcase that just users have been generating buzz about? Or is PlayStation just doing something at Summer's Fest and maybe we're just creating something that really isn't?
I think we are getting it, and the main reason I am thinking that is the information has come from Jeff Grubb, who is an industry insider who has given so many accurate leaks in the past because he has fingers in all the pies. He knows these people, knows these studios. They trust him with the information, and he will only release information that the public can have. So I do believe we are getting a big PlayStation showcase sometime in June. And I think it is going to be this purported second coming of the PlayStation 5, as Sony insiders and our dear Jeff Grubb have said. Whether that will be as part of the Summer Games Fest, because they've said they're a Summer Games Fest partner, exactly the same as they said about Game Awards and a couple of other things late last year, where they just threw a few trailers out and their name is on a few things, or whether that is they have a Summer Games Fest big moment, 2-hour segment where they come in and go, this is PlayStation. That I can't say. But some point in June, we are getting all of the announcements that we've been waiting 2 years for at this point, because there wasn't a big PlayStation Summit at any point in 2022, despite some big games coming out. So I think we're going to get that at some point in June, just due to the reliability of who has said it.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a little bit more reassuring. I mean, I personally had this question. That's why I wanted to ask you, because, you know, there is, like, why not just come out and say, you know, we're going to be doing this? The Xbox says they're going to have their game showcase months before they're going to have their game showcase. I don't understand the strategy behind the secrets. But
I think a lot of it in the past couple of years has been to do with the Activision Blizzard King deal that Microsoft are trying to go for. And a lot of what the back and forth has been about is Sony don't need this. Sony saying, well, actually, yes, we do. They're a third-party partner and publisher. We need third-party content. Microsoft are saying, we're so far behind, we need to buy this company to close the gap, and so on and so forth. And what neither company has wanted to do during that entire process is make themselves look too good. And if PlayStation had come out with this banger showcase that they've apparently had ready for nearly a year, according to Jeff Grubb, then that's playing into Microsoft's hands by saying, oh, they're too good, they don't need this. Whereas if they wait until regulators have said yay or nay, some have said yay, some have said nay across the world, well, then they can come out and do it. And especially if they've got one or two saying nay, then let's just bring it. Basically, we're sorted already. And Microsoft need that buzz, whereas PlayStation don't. PlayStation are the incumbent market leaders. They do not need the buzz around the console, because the console generates that through word of mouth alone, through players playing games on the system, through podcasts like this, through news sites, through news YouTubers, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's... I'm just hoping it's big. I need something. I'm looking forward to one game at the moment. I like picking up and playing a bunch of different things, but right now all I have to look forward to in terms of big hype is Spider-Man 2, and I need something from everybody to give me more to look forward to through the course of 2023 and beyond.
Wait a second. Are you not pumped to do some mech robot shooting action in Armored Core?
I've never been an Armored Core fan, any of them. Like, they're saying this is like a soft reboot, so it might be like 2018's God of War, where it changes everything and it can bring new players in as well as the old. But I'm hoping so, but I would have to see a lot more of it, get some reviews on deck first before jumping at that one. I'm trepidatious about that one. But then saying that, one of my favorite games of the past few years, which was Ghost of Tsushima, I was trepidatious about that until the reviews came out, and I think it's an absolute masterpiece. So,
Are
Who
these
knows?
guys right in here? Jeff Janak, thanks for coming by the episode. And Cowboy, did the Microsoft deal actually go through just now?
I am just checking.
Let's see. Is
I've
it
got no
trending on
news coming
Twitter?
up.
Or are you just trolling the cast here? That'd be cool if it did happen, but and we'd hear about it right now. But to me, it's not trending. I would assume it to be trending if it happened. We'll
There's a
check for
couple
you
of
right
people
now.
talking about it. There's nothing. There we go. The Verge are saying it's been approved by EU regulators. Okay,
There we go.
interesting. So, yeah, that one's going to be very interesting because the CMA can still
Oh,
block that.
Microsoft has one EU approval
Yeah.
antitrust, but I thought the CMA different than the EU?
Well, yeah, we idiots in the UK decided we didn't want to be part of the EU at some point, so we're now completely
Right.
separate.
So this is the same situation as, Japan and the Asian country alliance, approving the deal going through, and that not meaning anything until the CMA sort of said no.
They need that trifecta. Yeah, they need the CMA, the EU antitrust, and the FTC. But the FTC haven't decided yet. So it's 33% either way thus far, with the deciding 34% going to the FTC.
I think Cowboy's right in quoting Purple here and saying that she still says it'll be blocked. I mean, I think if one person says no, as big as the CMA, I feel like that's a non-starter in moving forward due to the
Unless they can bring something different to the table in their appeal, it's already a non-starter. They cannot try again for 10 years. That is what that no from the CMA means. They can go to appeal. It will go to the CMT then, which is Competition and Markets Tribunal or something. Basically, the same sort of people, just higher up the food chain. And then they will assess what the CMA have done. Normally, when the CMA say no, the CMT back them up wholeheartedly because they're working in the same unit. But if there's something that has been missed, that's been overlooked or given too much weight, the CMT will overturn it. They will not take into account any other governing body's decisions. So this EU Antitrust Commission doesn't have an effect upon the CMT. The FTC doesn't have an effect upon the CMT. It's wholly down to what these guys decide, and judging by history, it's not looking good for them. But there is a precedent that it can be overturned.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, this is some positive motion in terms of Microsoft, but I think there's still a lot of barriers to go through before we see Call of Duty on Game Pass.
I would be very surprised if we ever do, unless it is a deal struck as a separate company once this is all denied.
Yeah. Well, thanks for helping us confirm that last minute thing, and thank you, chat, for bringing in some news. I do appreciate that, Jeff, as well as Cowboy. Thanks. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us on our first inaugural episode of Super PlayStation Bros. Thank you, Dorgon, for coming out, hanging, talking some PlayStation. This is awesome. And we'll see you back 10 p.m. next week talking more PlayStation. All right, sounds good. Any closing words, Dorgon?
Oh, we'll talk to Callie about setting up an Xbox One with him or something. I don't know.
Do you have
we
an
probably
Xbox?
need the balance. I have this.
Have
This
that
is an
many
Xbox,
copies.
isn't it? It's green.
That's true.
It's green.
Hey, Callie, I'm all for it. It's fun, and thanks everyone for hanging out. And remember, we're all gamers in the game of life.
Big
Till
hugs
next
and
week.
love.
See you guys. Oh,
Bye.
this is gonna be my ending here. Watch how cool PlayStation is.
Si Sandra